Hello guys. My name is Wolford and welcome to One Reason channel. Here you expect nothing but economics and finance. And so today we're going to be answering one of the questions in investment appraisal with allowance for inflation. And quickly we'll jump into the question, but maybe just in brief. I'm going to mention that investment appraisal in summary is just basically, trying to find out the net present value of a project if you are to venture into it. You want to test before beginning that project. So you want to know, is this project giving me a positive net present value or a negative present value? In other words, you just want to know whether a certain project, if ventured into, is going to give you a profit or a loss. And as such, we're going to consider answering this question that has to do with allowance for inflation. So this is question number 6 that we're going to be answering, and it reads: a project plans to invest 10,000 in a new project. Net contribution over the next 5 years is expected to be $8,000 per year in real terms. The market expenditure of $2,400 per year also is needed. Then the expenditure of $1,100 per year will be required to replace the existing asset, which will now be used on the project but are getting to the end of their useful lives. This expenditure will be incurred at the start of each year. Additional investment in working capital equivalent to 10% of increased contribution will need to be in place at the start of each year. Then the working capital will be released at the end of the project. So the following forecasts are made of the assets of inflation each year for the next 5 years. Okay, so we've been given information here. Contribution of 8%. Marketing, this is an expenditure cost of 4%. That's each year. Asset, maintenance of the asset also, this is a cost of 5%. Then rise in general prices, this is basically, inflation. Then the real cost of capital of the company is 7%. Then the question strictly tells us here that all cash flows are in real terms, so we ignore tax. Okay, and now coming to the question. So the first question reads, question A: calculate the nominal rate to be used by the investor in the project. So in doing this, what we have to do is we're going to use the Fisher's equation. So in the Fisher equation, we've got 1 plus I, which stands for the nominal value or the nominal rate, equals to, open bracket, 1 plus R, which is the real rate, open bracket, multiplied by 1 plus H, which stands in for your inflation. So looking at the question, if you just rewind, we've been given information about, the real rate as well as the inflation rate. So in this case, we're just simply going to substitute in order to try and find our nominal rate, which is represented by the initial I. So it's going to be 1 plus I is equals to 1 plus R. So our real cost of capital of the company is 7%. So in this case, we're just going to convert it from percentage to value. We'll change it into a value term. Instead of it being a percentage, which is going to be 0.07. And how we arrive at that is just simply by dividing the 7% divided by the 100%, which gives you the actual value. Open bracket, 1 plus H. Remember we said H is our inflation, and in this case we've been told that the rise in general prices is 8.5%. So in this case, we're also going to divide this 8.5 divided by 100% is going to give us 0.085. And so we're going to multiply in order to find our nominal value. 1 point. So open bracket, 1 point. When we add, it's giving us 1.07. Open bracket, 1 point multiplied by 1 point. When we add, it's going to be 0.0085. Patching, so the answer that we get is 1.16095. You don't really necessarily have to write all the values. You can maybe keep it to like about 4 decimal places or 4 decimal values, just to maintain the accuracy of the answer that you're going to get. So in this case, our nominal value or nominal rate will be equals to this one. We'll cross over the equal sign to the other side, which is going to be 1.16095 minus 1, which gives us the nominal value of 0.6095. And when we convert that into percentage, which we'll just multiply by 100%, and our nominal value rate is going to be 16 point, we can say 17%, because when we round off, that's what we're getting. Okay. All right, so coming to the next question is question B, which reads calculate the operating cash flows to be generated from the project. Then the next one also reads compute the working capital injections as additional investment to the project. But firstly, before we even go to question C, let's consider question B. And therefore, I personally like using this format that I'm going to show you. I feel it makes things much more easier, simpler to cope and understand. So here goes question B solution. Okay, so to begin with, we're simply going to start with our period, which stands for the duration of the project. So we'll start by a 0, or let me just say year there. A 0, a 1, a 2, 3, a 4, and the 5th year. And so remember, I'm just not writing the years anyhow. We've been told in the question that a project plans to invest $10,000 in a new project, and the net contribution over the next 5 years is expected. So that's the reason why we've indicated the years up to year 5. So having done that, Next thing is our revenue. Remember I said this is a format I like using. It's much more easier. So for our revenues, remember there is a form of interest that is there towards our revenues that is being generated. So this is what is going to follow here, like what are our revenues. So in calculating our revenues, remember here we've been told that there is a contribution of 8%. And so what we're going to do, want to know what is this 8%, and also 8% of what. So this 8% is simply going to be the net contribution over the next 5 years is expected to be $8,000 per year. So this is the cash flow that we expect. But from this cash flow that we expect each year, there will be an increase of 8%. So what we're going to do here is actually say 1 plus the 8% contribution, which is 0.08. Remember, you have to convert it from percentage into the actual value, which is going to be 1.08. And this 1.08, we're going to multiply it by the $8,000 cash flow that we expect every year. So meaning, or from year 0, we know that we don't really have anything coming in because we haven't yet done any investment. But in year 1, we expect an increase of that cash flow, which is 8,000 plus the 8% contribution increase, which is an interest in some way. So we're going to multiply 1.08 multiplied by the $8,000. It's going to give us 8640. So we're going to write 8640. Pardon my handwriting, it's not the best, but hope you can see 840. Okay, having done that, the next thing we're also going to calculate the cash flow for the second year, and so on and so forth. Remember, now we're going to receive 8% cash flow, which is the $8,000 dollars, as well as the 8% of this amount or of this cash flow that we've received in year 1. In other words, it's compounding in some way. And so in order to find the cash flow for the following year, we're simply going to still multiply this cash flow for the first year multiplied by the 1.08, because that's the growth that is there. So we'll multiply our 8640 multiplied by 1.08. And so there's an increase of 9331.2. And we're going to do the same, multiplied by 1.08, which is $1,077.7. Okay, then we're also going to do the same for our fourth year. It's going to be $10,000. And for our final year, we're still going to multiply that by the same 754.62. I hope you can see the bias 62. Okay, now having done that, since we know what our revenues are, the next thing that will follow is our expenditure. Okay, so for our expenditure, we have been told in the question that that the market expenditure of $2,400 per year is also needed. And so what we're going to do is also consider marketing is 4%, right? Which is basically the marketing is 4%, which is basically the expenditure. This is the same as the market expenditure. It's a percentage of the market expenditure, and so we're going to find what that increase is also for the market expenditure. And so remember, expenditure only come in the first year also, because as you try and market your spending money, you need to put in some form of capital or money that goes towards that direction. So you spend, in other words, in order for you to market. All right, so what we're going to do here is also calculate the expenditure. And so the expenditure each year is expected to be $2,400 per year, but remember there's an increment of 4%, right? And so we're going to find this increment. So we're going to say 2,400 multiplied by 1.04% that we have converted, and it's going to give us 2496. Likewise, we said with our revenue that is compounding, the same way here our expenditure is also going to be compounding. So we're just simply going to multiply $2,496 by the same 1.04, and so we get 2595.84 in our second year's our expenditure. Just a quick note, remember expenditure is always negative, because when you spend, money has gone, you've spent, so it's negative. So that's the reason why we're putting these values in bracket to just stand in as a negative value, to say it's deducting from whatever has been generated. Okay, so we're going to multiply also the expenditure in the second year, 0.4. So we're getting 2699.67. Okay, then we multiply, and we're getting 2807.661 in bracket. Pardon my handwriting once again. Then we multiplied by 1.04, and so we're getting 2919.967. Okay, so now that we've got our expenditures, our market expenditures, so here, if you want to find your operating cash flows, you just subtract right? We're simply going to subtract here. Simply going to subtract. So we'll start from here since we already have the value there, so that we can find our operating cash flows. Operating cash flows. Okay. And let's find our operating cash flows. And so we're simply going to subtract. So we're saying the revenue generated minus the expenditure for the first year. So we do the same for the second, fourth, and fifth year. Let me just be quick about my calculations. I don't want to take a lot of time. So the answer we're getting is 8834.65. And do the same 10. Okay, and so after we're done finding, the operating cash flows for year 1 up to year 5, these are the answers. And therefore, we can now consider also, another expense that we have in the question, which is assets, which is at 5%. And so remember, these assets that you're going to be using in the project have to be maintained, right? So there's an issue of some form of like depreciation or maintenance costs that are there, and it comes at the maintenance cost of 5%. And so we've been told that, each year there's an expenditure of 1,100 per year for each year, in order to try and maintain the assets that you have in a particular project. Okay, so this is going to be our expenditure for the assets. And so remember, I said expenditures are negative. And so here we've been told that each year there's going to be an asset expenditure or a maintenance cost of our assets of about 1,100. So in order to find the expenditure in the first year, as well as the total expenditure, in short, as well as it's the 5% increment that is there towards the expenditure each year. We're going to multiply the 1,100 multiplied by the 1.05%. Okay, so for our first year we have $1,155 brackets, because expenditure is negative. Okay, so we'll do that for all of the other years as well. Okay, and there we have our asset expenditure on a yearly basis from year 1 to year 5. Now the next step is we're going to now try and find our net cash flows, net operating cash flows. Okay, so for us to find our net operating cash flows, we're just simply going to subtract our operating cash flows, subtract the asset expenditure cost, and that gives us our net operating cash flows. And so It's going to be 6,144 minus 1,155. So that gives us 4,989. Okay, so we're going to do that for all the other years as well. Okay, and those are our net operating cash flows. These are net operating cash flows. I hope you could or you can see properly. Okay, and after we've now reached this stage, it's very important of us to now find our operating capital or injected capital. And for us to find this operating capital, it's very important. This is what I do personally, so I'll leave some space here and just begin by collecting our revenue. Once again, the revenues that we found, so in this case it's going to be 8644. Let me just indicate that's year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and the 5th year. So we get 8,640, 93312, 10077.7, 10,883.91, and finally 11,754.62. Okay, now that we've collected the revenue, I emphasize again, leave some space because we're still going to come and utilize this space in order to finalize what we've started here. So in order for us to find our operating capital or our injected capital, this is the method that I use. Okay guys, so here the whole point, remember I said operating capital, that's actually supposed to be, we're trying to find our working capital. And so in order to find our working capital here, what I said is you leave some space and just start by indicating the year again in that order. Then collect your revenues. You can just rewrite the revenues that we've already found there, you indicate them there. Then the next thing that you want to do is just quick note, I've also indicated year 0 and you're going to see the reason why. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is, in order to find our working capital, we're going to consider that in the questions we have been told that there's a working equivalent to 10% increase in contribution. That's in the question right here, 10%. And so in order to find our working capital, what we're going to do is we're going to calculate this 10%. Remember, but also in the question, remember it has said that each year this 10%, there's an increase of 10% each year. So, and that it's at the beginning, the contribution is made at the beginning of the year. So in this case, what we're going to do is first find our working capital. We'll calculate what the 10% is the 10% is from the revenue in year one. You know, what the 10% is from our revenue that we've already found. So in this case, it's going to be 8640 multiplied by, remember this 10%, you need to find 10% of 8640, which is going to be 0.1. And we have 864. Now note that this 10% contribution is always made at the beginning of the year. So before year one, the beginning before year one in this case, this 864 is going to be indicated as in year 0 instead of year 1. This is something you really need to take note, guys. And you know, your working capital is always in the negatives, so put brackets there. It's always negative. It is always negative. Alright guys, so since we found what's the 10% of the revenue generated in the first year, we'll do that for the second year. But I'll repeat again, in order for us to find our working capital, we're going to calculate our 10% of the the contribution from the revenue generated in the first year and the other years. And what we get, instead of indicating it in year 1, we're going to indicate it in year 0. So a year before that contribution was made, earlier before the actual year of that revenue was made. So in this case, the 10% of this revenue here, that contribution was made in year 0 before before year 1. So the same, the contribution for this year, the 10% was made in year 1, because remember in the question we've been told that these contributions are made at the beginning. Okay, so we're going to do that for all the years. Just for practicality's sake, I'm going to also calculate 10% of 93312 times 0.1, and so we get 9. Okay, so we get our value 933.12. Then the same 10% of this, then the answer I put it in year 2, the same. Okay, so let's just do it together. 0.7 multiplied by 0.1, and so we get 1007. So indicate, instead of indicating it there, always remember that as long as it's mentioned in the question to say it's at the contribution is made at the beginning. So you go to the previous year, and that's where you indicate your finding. Okay, then for year 3 we do the same. 83.91 multiplied by 0.1. Okay, and so we get 888.3, or you can say 0.4. We just round it off. Then 754.62 multiplied by 0.1, and we get 1175. 75.46. And so you're going to notice that for our fifth year, in order for us to find the value or the answer for our fifth year, we would have need to know what the revenue is in the 60th year. But since this is the time frame, the period that we've been given, so we'll leave it as such and we'll come back to it later. And now, in order for us to now find our final answer, cash flow, we're going to simply subtract or find the differences between these values that we have there. And so it's going to be the 933.12 minus the 864, and we indicate the answer there. Okay, are you with me? Okay, so 933.12 minus the 864, and the answer is 69. And so 60, instead of putting the answer there, we just follow here, you put it there, 69.12. Now these are negative values. Remember I said working capital is negative. And so also for the other value, in order to find the working capital there, the difference between the two also, which is going to be 1007.77 minus 93.12. So answer is 74.65, brackets because it's negative, always remember, 1088.4 minus 1007.77. Again, that's our answer, 80.63, bracket, same thing there, 1175.46 minus 1088.4. The value is 87.06. That's our cash flow. Okay, having done that, now the next thing we're gonna do here is, okay, so the next thing we're gonna do now, remember for our fifth year, we didn't, like we said, we would have needed to know the revenue in the 60th year in order for us to find the working capital there. So in this case, we're just going to find or bring down this value. You've seen this value, we're just going to bring it down as it is. It won't be negative. If this value is negative or if it's positive, you just bring it down as it is and write it there. I hope that's clear. 1175.4.62. And so this is our net working capital that we found. These are our net working capital, right? So we're going to get this net working capital and input it back there. Remember I said you should leave some space, and we're going to come and continue and finish up what we're doing. So we're going to collect our net working capital that we found. So just bring it down there and plug it in. 69.12, 74.65, 80.65, 87.0, and in our fifth year, you just bring the value as it is, right? So 1175.4.66. 62. Okay, having done that, okay, so one thing we forgot, guys, or one thing I forgot to mention is, remember when finding our working capital here, this value we said we find the differences, and this is how come we came up with these values. Then also here on this part, it's very key that this first value of the working capital here is also indicated as in year 0, because that's the working capital that is there in year 0. So you also have to indicate it. And as such, as we transfer now our net working cash flows or net working capital to the initial diagram that we were solving, we are also going to indicate this 865 in year 0. So under our working capital here, also indicate 864. Okay, then also we can now bring in our initial cost, which in the question we were told clearly that our initial cost is $10,000. So we indicate $10,000. Okay. Having done this, the next step that we're going to do is we're now going to subtract these values. We're going to subtract these values. So 10,000 dollars as a cost plus that, these are both negative, so it's going to be okay. So we're simply going to add, guys. So beginning from here, we just add, and this is going to give us 10,864. Okay, as our total cost. Then we're going to subtract this from that, this from that, this from that. So in this case, it's going to be 4,989 minus 64 minus 69.12 again. That's our answer. 4,914.88. So we're going to do the same for each year. All of the other remaining years, we're also going to subtract this from that, and so on. Okay, so these are our values that we found. Sorry guys, once again, my handwriting is not that good. I know it's not maybe clear, but this should be 129, so 0.129. Okay, so these are the values that we've found. So at this point now, what we want to do is find our discount factor for each year. So now, remember that in the beginning, we started with finding, the nominal value rate, which was 17%. And so, we're going to find the discount factor of 17% in each year, right? In each year. And for us to find our discount factor, you can either use a formula or the tables that are given, tables of annuity that are given there to find your discount factor. But I'll just simply show you the formula. Discount factor is equals to 1 over in bracket 1 plus R, it's the rate, okay, to the power n, right? So R stands in for the rate, which in this case is going to be 17% that we first found, the 17%. And N just stands in for the year that you're calculating, which year are you calculating for that discount factor. So to begin with, you know that the discount factor for year zero is going to be 1. Any number to the power 0, you know it's going to definitely give you 1, right? 1 is what you're going to find. Okay, so now what is our discount factor in year 1, right? So just for calculatory purposes, I'm going to demonstrate. So 1 over 1 plus, so 17%, we're going to convert it 0.17 to the power, this is n, remember, represents what year you're calculating the discount factor for. So since this is year 1 that we're calculating for, so we'll put to the power 1, right? And so we can now use our calculator. 1.1 plus 0.17 is going to be 1.17 to the power 1. And our discount factor is 0.8547, at least to about 4 decimal places. I think that's quite decent in order for us to have a pretty accurate answer. Okay, so we're going to do that for the rest of the years as well. All right, guys, so these are our discount factors that we found. After finding the discount factors, now the next thing that we're going to do is multiply this value multiplied by the discount factor, and we get our answer there. This multiplied by that, we get that value. This multiplied by that, we get this value. So in short, in order for us to find our present values, we're just multiplying our discount factor multiplied by these values here that we have. Okay, so these are the present values. After finding the present values, now what we're just going to do is sum everything together. Now, as you may note that this cost is negative. Every cost is negative, and so we're going to add in order to find our net present value. So we'll add this plus that plus that plus that plus that plus this negative value here, which will give us our net present value. So let's do that. All right, guys, so after doing the addition of our present values in order to find our net present value, this is our net present value that we've come up with, 13,381.566. I do think that I might have made some errors while punching through the numbers, but otherwise, in terms of the method, I think this is quite a much easier approach, because you're going to notice that all other coming questions would have been answered by this method, right? It's very easy. If you guys have any questions about what step and how I got what value, please do ask in the comment section. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and I'm going to continue bringing more lessons. I hope this has been of help. Thank you very much.